One of the reasons why I bought the spec computer that I did was because I wanted to create some virtual machines on it. If I run htop, as I've done here, you can see that it's reporting that there are 16 cores to this processor. I'm not sure that's entirely accurate. I thought the 9900K had 8 cores but could run 2 threads on each. In any case, 16 cores is pretty good and justifies the expense of the processor in my case. Installation's pretty straightforward. It's just a couple of packages that you need to install for the virtualization infrastructure, namely QEMU KVM, libvirt, virt install, and bridge utilities. And then it goes off and does its thing. Once the installation's done, the next step is to connect the network to the virtual network infrastructure which is contained within the virtualization. To do this, we need to create something called a bridge, and the bridge, its function is to do exactly that, make a bridge between one set of infrastructure and another set of infrastructure. The fact that it's virtual doesn't really matter. What I'm doing here is I'm following the instructions on server world for Fedora 30 setting up virtualization. And there's nothing wrong with these instructions. They work perfectly well for a particular way of doing things. Unfortunately, everything I'm doing from this point onwards is wrong for what I want to do. But I'll leave it in. I'll leave it in the video because then you can see how to do it if you want to create this particular type of infrastructure. And I'll leave a link to Server World in the description because it's a really, really good resource for setting up anything under Linux, I think. It's at this point, when I try and SSH into the server, that I realise I've done something wrong. My solution to this is to delete the bridge and the Ethernet connection and then recreate the Ethernet connection. This at least then gives me SSH access back to the server on the 110 IP address. So I think I fixed it, but of course I haven't. At this point, I really just want to create a VM and make sure it works. So I'm creating a Fedora 30 server, 4GB of RAM, 20GB hard disk, and using one virtual CPU. Now the VM's been installed, I'm going to do a bit of testing. The first testing I do is to check the image file exists in the location that I expect it to. And we can see here that it does. I then check the node info for the virtualization server, and that just tells me the number of processors it sees and just confirms to me that the virtualization system is actually running. Then I check to see whether the specific machine or what machines are running. And after that, I ping the specific VM that I've just created. So that's VIII testing, or VIII test. Once I've pinged it and I'm happy that it's running, I try to SSH into it, and that is also successful. All of this is being done on the host computer, since I cannot access the virtual machine as of yet from outside of the host computer, and that's the next problem I need to solve. Oh, sorry, that's brilliant. At this point, it was time to revisit the issue with the networking. As you can see here, I can't SSH to the bridged adapter that I've connected the virtual network to, and I can't ping the virtual machine itself either directly or after I updated some routing on my switch. I think the problem was I created a bridge and a range of IP addresses for that bridge to use, and then I couldn't access those IP addresses. So when I created the virtual machine was picking up an IP address, but it was picking up an IP address in a closed network. So I created a new bridge namely Bro. Or Bro was my original bridge, I can't remember anymore. And defined that as a literal bridge between the Ethernet connector ENO2 and the rest of it. Unfortunately, because I'm incompetent and it didn't record, I can't show you exactly what I did to fix the bridge. However, I can show you the configuration files. So we can use this command to list all the active network configurations. And you can see the one here is called Bro. And that one I then edit using nano. Essentially what I did was take out all the IP address ranging and just change the protocol from none to DHCP, and then it seems to want to work. I need to test whether or not I get an appropriate IP address for the virtual machine that I've already set up. So if we do sudo start, what's it called? Fed 30 test -console, and the -console just logs me in. So essentially what it does is it launches it as a, well, as a text window. Can I remember the password? Can I remember the username? So all I'm going to do now is have a look to see if I've got an IP address. That's really all I'm interested in at the moment. And I do have an IP address. Yeah, I'm really quite pleased. If I come out of that, and can I quit this? Is it exit? So I'm now back onto the native computer. I'm going to try SSH at 192.168.1.105. Bloody brilliant. There are 4 bits of tidying up to do just to finish off. The first one is done off camera, and that's reserving an IP address on the router. Then, as you can see in the background, setting the virtual machine to auto start. Once this is done, I'm going to rename the VM from Fed30test to FedDC to reflect what I intend to use the VM for at a later date. And the final thing I need to do is set the host name from within the VM itself. Calling everything local host is not very helpful. So we're just going to reboot and see whether or not we get our new IP address, whether the VM auto starts, and whether or not, well, we already know the host name's changed, but we'll give it a go, see what happens. So that's good. I've restarted the main server and it automatically has started Fed DC, which at the moment is just a test rig, but will ultimately be my Samba server. So what we'll do now is log in and check the IP address of we'll check the IP address of Fed DC. Excellent. We've got the IP address that I've reserved in the router, which is great. Yeah, I'm probably going to end up with quite a few reserved IP addresses on the router, but that's a problem to be sorted out at a later date. What I'm going to do now is come out of the host. Sorry. What I'm going to do now is come out of the client, and then I'm going to come out of the host as well. And now I'm going to directly go into the client using SSH. I hope. That looks like it's working. If only I could type this password correct. And we're in. So we'll just do a quick pretty picture. Well, I'm happy with that. I think the next task will be to set up another VM. This time I think we're going to make it a GUI VM, just to make sure that the DHCP on the router can give out more and more IP addresses via the bridge.